The water turned red. Grace scrubbed harder. Her hands burned from the bleach, but she couldn't stop. If she stopped, she'd have to think about whose blood this was. Grace, you almost done down there? Margaret Johnson's voice floated down the basement stairs. Casual, like she was asking about laundry. Grace's throat closed. She forced words out. Almost. Mrs. Johnson. Good. Make sure you get everything. Every drop. Every drop. Grace looked at her hands. The skin on her knuckles had split open. Her blood mixed with the girl's blood in the bucket. She wanted to vomit. Grace, yes ma'am. We appreciate your discretion. You know that, right? How valuable you are to this family. Valuable. Grace squeezed the rag until her fingers went numb. They paid her $3 an hour. $3 to clean their mansion, cook their food, raise their son. And now this. Clean up after whatever Connor did to that girl last night. The footsteps moved away. Grace was alone again. She reached into her apron pocket and felt the earring she'd found under the water heater. Small. Gold. Shaped like a butterfly. She should throw it away. She should forget she ever saw it. She kept it anyway. Her daughter Marie was getting married in 3 months. Back in Port-au-Prince. Grace had been in America for 23 years and hadn't been home once. Not once. Because she had no papers. No passport. No way back even if she wanted to go. She was trapped here in this basement with a bucket of blood and an earring that didn't belong to her. But before I tell you how I got this trapped, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the bell. Because this story disappears if you don't listen. Women like me, we vanish. We clean your houses and we disappear like we were never here. So subscribe. Stay until the end. And comment what city you're watching from. Tell me you see me. Tell me I'm not invisible. Please. Now let me tell you how this started. Grace met Margaret Johnson on a Tuesday. 3 years ago. She'd been sleeping in a park for 5 days after immigration raided the hotel where she'd been working. A woman named Rosa found her at a bus stop. You looking for work? Grace hadn't slept in 2 days. Yes. I know a family. They need someone live in. $400 a week. Grace's heart jumped. $400 was more than she'd ever made. What's the catch? Rosa looked away. No catch. Just keep your head down. That should have been a warning. But Grace was desperate. Desperation makes you stupid. The house on Alhambra Circle looked like something from a movie. White columns. Perfectly cut grass. Grace stood at the front door with everything she owned in a plastic bag. Margaret answered in yoga pants that probably cost $200. She looked Grace up and down like she was inspecting meat. You're Grace? Yes ma'am. Come in. Wipe your feet. The house was freezing. Air conditioning on full blast even though it was November. Margaret walked fast. Grace followed. Her shoes squeaked on the marble. I'll be direct. My husband's a lawyer. I'm in real estate. We need someone full-time. Cooking, cleaning, everything. You'll live in the basement. Small room but it's private. $400 a week, cash every Friday. You have Sundays off from 6 to 9 p.m. Questions, 3 hours off per week. Grace swallowed. No ma'am. Good. Rules. Use the service entrance, not the front door. Don't touch anything in the living room or our bedroom. Don't talk to our guests. Don't make personal calls. And what happens in this house stays in this house. Understood? Grace's stomach dropped. But she nodded. Understood. You start tomorrow. 5 a.m. Grace should have walked out. Should have heard the prison door slamming shut. But instead she said, "Thank you, Mrs. Johnson." Margaret smiled. Cold. Don't thank me yet. The first morning Grace woke up at 4:30. Her room in the basement had no windows. A twin bed. A lamp. That was it. She put on the black uniform Margaret had left on the bed and went upstairs. The list was on the kitchen counter. Written in perfect handwriting. Clean all bathrooms. Deep clean oven. Wash and iron all bedding. Prepare dinner: roasted chicken, asparagus, potatoes. Polish all silver. Vacuum entire house. Clean all windows. Grace read it twice. This was impossible. One person couldn't do all this in a day. She started anyway. 5 a.m. to midnight. Her back screamed. Her hands cracked and bled from chemicals. She fell asleep in her uniform at 1 in the morning. The next day the list was longer. The day after that longer still. Richard Johnson walked past her in the hallway like she was a ghost. Never made eye contact. Never said good morning. Just left his half-empty coffee cups everywhere for her to clean. Margaret watched everything. Criticized everything. Grace, you missed a spot on that mirror. Grace, the chicken was dry last night. Grace, these towels aren't folded correctly. Grace learned to say yes, Mrs. Johnson. Sorry, Mrs. Johnson. She learned to make herself smaller. Quieter. Invisible. Friday came. Grace waited in the kitchen at 7 p.m. Margaret walked in, pulled cash from her purse. But instead of 400 she counted out 350. Grace's heart sank. Mrs. Johnson, you broke a glass on Tuesday. That's $50. But I didn't. Margaret's eyes went hard. Are you arguing with me? Grace looked down. No, ma'am. Good. Because you need to be more careful. These things are expensive. The glass hadn't been broken. Grace knew it. Margaret knew it. But what could Grace do? She took the 350 and went to her room and counted it 3 times, hoping the math would change. It didn't. She called home that night. Her 10 minutes on Sunday. Marie answered. Mama, hi baby. How are you? Good, Mama. I need to tell you something. I got into nursing school. The one in Port-au-Prince. But I need money for books and uniform. About 300 American. 300. Almost everything Grace just made. But this was why she was here. For Marie's future. I'll send it. Don't worry. Thank you, Mama. I love you. I love you too. Grace hung up. She had $50 left. $50 for 2 weeks of food and toiletries and bus fare if she needed to run. She sat on her bed and allowed herself 60 seconds to cry. Then she washed her face and went back upstairs. The kitchen still needed cleaning. 3 weeks later, Connor came home. Grace heard him before she saw him. The front door slammed. Heavy footsteps. A voice loud and entitled. Mom, where's my laundry? Grace was in the kitchen making dinner. She kept her head down, kept chopping vegetables. Connor walked in. 21 years old. Tall. Handsome in that smooth rich boy way. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, looked right at her. You're the new housekeeper. Yes. What's your name? Grace. Grace. He said it slowly. Testing it. Where you from? Haiti. Haiti. Cool. He popped the beer. Took a long drink. Never stopped watching her. My mom's tough, huh? Don't take it personal. She goes through housekeepers like crazy. Grace kept chopping. I'll do my best. I bet you will. His eyes traveled down her body. Slow. Deliberate. You need anything, you let me know. I take care of people who are good to me. He walked out. Grace's hands were shaking. She put the knife down before she cut herself. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the way Connor looked at her. Like she was something he could take. Something he owned. Around 2 a.m. she heard voices upstairs. Angry. She pressed her ear to the ceiling. I don't care what she said, Richard. She's lying. Margaret's voice. Sharp. Margaret, be reasonable. Why would she lie? Because she wants money. That's what these people do. Silence. Then Richard, quieter. I'll handle Connor. You'll do more than that. You'll make sure she stays quiet. Pay her whatever it takes. Grace's blood went cold. What had Connor done? Who was she? The next morning Margaret called her upstairs. Grace stood in the living room, hands folded. Grace, I want to talk to you about loyalty. Okay. You've been with us almost a month. You've done good work. But I need to know I can trust you. Completely. You can, Mrs. Johnson. Can I? Margaret sat down on the white couch. Crossed her legs. See, sometimes things happen in families. Private things. And when they do, we need people who will keep those things private. Do you understand? Grace understood perfectly. Yes. Good. Because if word got out about certain matters, it would be very bad. For everyone. Including you. Margaret paused. You're here illegally, correct? The threat hung in the air. Grace's mouth went dry. Yes. I thought so. Now we don't care about that. We're happy to employ you. But if you ever betrayed our trust, if you ever spoke to anyone about private family matters. Margaret smiled. Immigration is just a phone call away. And my husband has connections. You'd be on a plane back to Haiti before you could pack. Your children back home, they need you, don't they? What would happen to them if you were deported? Grace felt the trap closing. I would never, I know. Because you're smart. You understand what's at stake. Margaret stood up. Connor's home for the holidays. I expect you'll make him comfortable. That was it. Grace was dismissed. She went back to the kitchen and gripped the counter edge until her knuckles turned white. She was trapped. Completely trapped. Connor started coming into the kitchen more often. Always when Grace was alone. Always standing too close. You're looking good today, Grace. Let me help you with those dishes. You know you're pretty for your age. Grace tried to avoid him. Tried to time her work so she wouldn't be alone with him. But the house was big and Connor seemed to always know where she was. Friday afternoon she was in the laundry room folding towels. She heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Connor was in the doorway. Blocking the exit. Hey Grace. I need to finish this. I'm not stopping you. He stepped closer. I just wanted to say I like you. You're not like the others. You know your place. Grace pressed back against the washing machine. Thank you. You're welcome. He reached out. Touched her arm. We could be friends, you know. I'm real nice to my friends. Grace pulled away. I should get back to work. Connor's smile disappeared. His hand shot out. Grabbed her wrist. Hard. Don't be rude, Grace. I'm trying to be nice. Let go. Or what? He leaned in close. His breath smelled like beer. You gonna tell my mom you gonna call the cops with your illegal ass? Grace's heart hammered. She yanked her arm back. Please. He held on for 3 more seconds. Then let go. Laughed. Relax. I'm just playing. But you should remember something. This house, you got no power here. You're nobody. He walked out. Grace slid down the wall and sat on the laundry room floor. Her wrist was already bruising. She stared at it and thought about her daughter Marie planning a wedding Grace would never attend. She thought about her son Jean taking university exams with money Grace earned on her knees scrubbing floors. Was this worth it? Was any of this worth it? She didn't know anymore. That Sunday she called home. Jean answered this time. Mama, hi baby. How are you? Tired? I've been studying for finals. But Mama, I got accepted to medical school. In Santo Domingo. I start next year. Medical school. Grace's chest filled with something that felt like pride and grief all mixed together. That's wonderful. But it's expensive. Like 5,000 American for the first year. 5,000. Grace closed her eyes. I'll figure it out. Are you okay, Mama? You sound tired. I'm fine. Just working hard. When are you coming home? Soon. The lie tasted like metal. Soon. She hung up and sat in her basement room and stared at the concrete wall. 20 more years, she thought. 20 more years of Margaret and Richard and Connor. 20 more years of being invisible. Of being nobody. Could she survive that? She looked at her wrist. The bruise was dark purple now. She touched it and winced. She had to survive. Her children needed her. That's what mothers do. They survive. No matter what it costs. The bruise on Grace's wrist turned yellow after a week. She covered it with long sleeves even though the house was always freezing. Margaret noticed anyway. What happened to your arm? Grace was scrubbing the kitchen counter. She didn't look up. I bumped it on the washing machine. Be more careful. We can't have you getting injured. Who would do the work? Who would do the work? Not are you okay? Not do you need ice? Just who would do the work? Grace kept scrubbing. Christmas came. The house filled with decorations Grace had to put up and would have to take down. Gold garland. Crystal ornaments. A 12-foot tree in the living room that took her 4 hours to decorate while Margaret stood behind her saying higher, no lower, more to the left. Connor brought friends home. 3 boys from his college. Rich. Loud. They tracked mud through the house Grace had just mopped. Dropped beer bottles on the white carpet. At 2 a.m. they were in the pool screaming and laughing. Grace was in the kitchen cleaning up their dinner plates when one of them walked in. Blonde hair. Red eyes. Drunk. Hey, you got more beer? Grace pointed to the fridge. In there. He opened it. Grabbed 3 bottles. Looked at her. You're the maid, right? Housekeeper. Same thing. He laughed. Leaned against the counter. How much they pay you? Grace didn't answer. Come on. I'm curious. My parents got a maid too. Filipino lady. They pay her like nothing. I bet you make even less. You're illegal, right? I can tell. Grace's hands tightened on the plate. I need to finish this. Relax. I'm just talking. He stepped closer. Too close. You know what's funny? My dad says you people come here and take our jobs. But like nobody wants to clean toilets anyway, right? So really you're doing us a favor. Grace put the plate down slowly. Please move. Why am I making you uncomfortable? He grinned. Connor said you were sensitive. The kitchen door swung open. Connor walked in. Saw his friend. Saw Grace. Dude, leave her alone. She's got work to do. The friend laughed. I was just talking to her. Yeah, well, don't. My mom's crazy about the help. Come on. They left. Grace stood there, hands shaking. She picked up the plate. Put it down. Picked it up again. The shaking wouldn't stop. Connor came back 10 minutes later. Alone. Grace was loading the dishwasher. Sorry about Brad. He's an asshole when he drinks. Grace didn't respond. Grace. I said I'm sorry. I heard you. Connor's face changed. You got an attitude now. Grace straightened up. Looked at him. Something inside her had cracked. No. I'm just tired. We're all tired. You don't see me complaining. You're not working 20-hour days. The words came out before she could stop them. Connor's eyes went hard. What did you say? Grace's heart hammered. She'd crossed a line. Nothing. I'm sorry. No, you said something. Say it again. I didn't mean you think you work hard. You think this is hard. Connor stepped forward. You got a roof over your head. Food. Money. My parents could have hired anyone. They chose you. And this is the thanks they get attitude. I said I'm sorry. You should be. Because you got it real easy here, Grace. Real easy. You forget that maybe things get harder. You understand? Grace nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. Connor stared at her for 5 more seconds. Then walked out. Grace finished loading the dishwasher. Her hands still shook. She went down to her basement room and sat on the bed. The concrete walls pressed in. She pulled out her phone. The prepaid one she'd bought at a gas station because Margaret wouldn't let her use the house phone anymore except Sundays. She dialed Marie's number. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. She hung up. Dialed Jean. Voicemail. She sat in the dark and realized she had nobody to call. Nobody who could help. Nobody who would even believe her if she told them what was happening. She was completely alone. The next morning Margaret had a dinner party. 8 guests. Grace spent all day cooking. Roasted duck. Asparagus with hollandaise. Potatoes au gratin. Homemade bread. Margaret stood in the kitchen every 30 minutes watching, criticizing. That sauce is too thin. The bread's overcooked. You call this a presentation? Grace redid everything twice. By the time the guests arrived at 7, she'd been cooking for 11 hours. Her feet screamed. Her back felt like it might snap. She served the first course. The guests were seated in the dining room. Grace wore the black dress and white apron Margaret had bought her. A uniform. Like she was part of the furniture. She set plates down in front of each guest. None of them looked at her. They talked over her head like she wasn't there. The market's been crazy this quarter. We're thinking of buying a place in Aspen. Connor got into law school. We're so proud. Grace returned to the kitchen. Brought out the main course. A woman with too much jewelry looked at her plate, then at Margaret. Margaret, this looks divine. Where did you find your cook? Margaret smiled. Oh, she's been with us for months now. Hard to find good help these days, you know, but we got lucky with Grace. She's very obedient. The table laughed. Grace's face burned. She kept her eyes down. A man at the end of the table, older, silver hair, looked at Grace for the first time. Where are you from, dear? Grace's stomach dropped. She hated this question. Haiti, sir. Haiti, how exotic. Do you miss it every day? Every hour. Every breath. Sometimes. Well, you're lucky to be here. In America. Land of opportunity. He smiled like he'd said something kind. Grace nodded. Yes, sir. She went back to the kitchen. Stood at the sink. Gripped the edge of the counter. Land of opportunity. She'd been here 3 years. 3 years of 20-hour days and $3 an hour and sleeping in a basement and being called obedient like she was a dog. This was opportunity. The kitchen door swung open. Richard walked in. Grace jumped. Sorry. Didn't mean to startle you. He grabbed a bottle of wine from the rack. Paused. Grace, right, it was the first time he'd said her name in 3 months. Yes, sir. Margaret tells me you're doing good work. Keep it up. He left before she could respond. Grace stared at the door. That was it. 3 months of working herself to death and she got keep it up. She finished serving dessert at 11. The guests left at midnight. Grace cleaned the dining room, the kitchen, the bathrooms they'd used. She washed every dish, every glass, every fork. She scrubbed the floors where they'd spilled wine and dropped food. At 2:30 a.m. she was finally done. She dragged herself downstairs, collapsed on her bed still in her uniform. She was asleep in seconds. The screaming woke her at 3:15. Grace sat up, heart pounding. A girl's voice, young, terrified, coming from upstairs. "Stop, please stop." Grace ran to her door. Opened it. The screaming got louder. "I said no, get off me." Connor's voice slurred. "Shut up. Shut the hell up." Grace's legs moved before her brain could catch up. She ran up the stairs. The screaming was coming from Connor's room at the end of the hall. She reached his door. It was cracked open. She pushed it wider. The girl was on Connor's bed. Maybe 16, maybe younger. Blonde hair. Torn dress. Connor was on top of her, one hand over her mouth. The girl saw Grace. Her eyes went wide, pleading. Connor turned. Saw Grace. His face twisted with rage. "Get out." Grace froze. Connor let her go. "I said get out. This is none of your business." The girl bit Connor's hand. He yelped. She shoved him off. Scrambled off the bed. Her lip was bleeding. "Please," she said to Grace. "Please help me." Connor grabbed the girl's arm. Yanked her back. "You're not going anywhere." Grace stepped into the room. "Let her go." "Grace, I swear to God, get out right now or what you'll tell your mother." "Go ahead. Tell her." Connor's face went white, then red. He let go of the girl. She ran past Grace and down the stairs. Connor followed. Grace followed Connor. They reached the foyer. The girl was at the front door yanking on the handle. It was locked. "Let me out, let me out." Connor caught up to her. Grabbed her shoulders. "Listen, just calm down, okay? Just calm down and we can talk about this. Let me go." "I will, I promise. Just stop screaming." The girl kneed him in the groin. Connor went down. She found the deadbolt, unlocked it and ran out into the night. Connor stayed on the ground groaning. Grace stood in the foyer, breath coming fast. A light flicked on upstairs. Margaret appeared at the top of the stairs in a silk robe. "What on earth is going on?" Connor pushed himself up. "Nothing, Mom. Just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding at 3 in the morning? It's fine. Go back to bed." Margaret looked at Grace. "What happened?" Grace opened her mouth. Closed it. The words wouldn't come. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Grace, I asked you a question." "There was a girl," Grace said. Her voice sounded far away. "Connor brought a girl home." She was upset. Upset about what? Grace looked at Connor. He was staring at her. A warning in his eyes. "I don't know," Grace said. "She just ran out." Margaret walked down the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. She looked at Connor. "Is this true, Mom?" "It's not what it looks like." "What does it look like?" "Connor, she was drunk. I was trying to help her." She freaked out. Margaret turned to Grace. "Did she seem drunk to you?" Grace's mouth went dry. "Say yes," she thought. "Say yes and this goes away. Say yes and you keep your job and your money and Marie's nursing school and Jean's medical school. Say yes and you're complicit in rape." "No," Grace said. She didn't seem drunk. The room went silent. Connor's face twisted. Grace quiet. Margaret held up a hand. She was still looking at Grace. "What did you see?" "I heard screaming. I went to his room. She was on his bed. Trying to get away. He was holding her down." Margaret didn't blink. "I see. Mom, she's lying," I said, quiet. Margaret's voice was ice. "Go to your room, Connor." "But now." Connor looked at Grace one more time. Pure hatred. Then he walked upstairs. Margaret turned to Grace. "Follow me." They went to the kitchen. Margaret poured herself a glass of water. Drank it slowly. Set the glass down. Finally looked at Grace. "Do you know what you've just done?" "I told the truth." "The truth." Margaret laughed. Cold. "Grace, you've been in this country how long? 3 years and you still don't understand how things work." "I understand just fine." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing you just accused my son of assault." "My son. Do you know what that means for him, for this family?" "He was hurting that girl. She was drunk. She came here willingly. Whatever happened happened between 2 consenting adults. She was saying no. She was drunk, she was terrified. Margaret's hand slammed on the counter. You need to be very careful right now, Grace. Very, very careful. Because you're standing in my house illegally accusing my son of a crime. Do you understand how this looks? Grace's hands clenched. I know what I saw. And I know what you are. An illegal immigrant who cleans toilets for money. Who do you think people will believe, you or my son who's going to law school, who's never been in trouble? That girl was drunk and regretful. Nothing more. And you know what's going to happen? We're going to find her. We're going to compensate her for her troubles. She's going to sign something saying this was all a misunderstanding. And everyone moves on. Grace's stomach turned. You're going to pay her to stay quiet. I'm going to protect my family. And you're going to keep your mouth shut. Margaret stepped closer. You're going to forget this ever happened. You're going to clean whatever mess was made. And you're going to remember who signs your paychecks. Understood? Grace wanted to scream. Wanted to run. Wanted to call the police. But she couldn't. Because Margaret was right. Grace was illegal. Grace was nobody. And Connor was somebody. Understood? Grace's voice came out broken. Yes. Good. Now go to bed. And Grace. Margaret's smile was sharp. Your pay this week is $200. The other $200 is compensation for your discretion. Fair? It wasn't fair. Nothing about this was fair. But Grace nodded anyway. She went downstairs to her room. Sat on her bed. Stared at the wall. That girl was out there somewhere. Scared. Hurt. Maybe bleeding. And Grace had just promised to stay silent about it. She pulled out her phone. Stared at the screen. She could call 911. She could report this. She could do the right thing. But then what ice comes? Grace gets deported. Marie doesn't get to go to nursing school. Jean doesn't get to go to medical school. Everything Grace sacrificed for the last 3 years gone. She put the phone down. She was a coward. She knew it. A coward who chose her children over doing the right thing. A coward who let a rapist stay free because she needed the money. She lay down on her bed. Pulled her knees to her chest. And cried without making a sound, because even crying had to be silent in this house. Grace didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes she saw the girl's face. Terrified. Pleading. And Grace had done nothing. Worse than nothing. She'd promised to stay silent. At 4:30 she got up. Put on her uniform. Went upstairs. The house was dark. Quiet. Like nothing had happened. She started cleaning Connor's room at 5. The sheets were stained. She stripped the bed, hands shaking. Found a torn piece of fabric under the nightstand. Part of the girl's dress. She shoved it in her pocket before she could think about it. Connor's door opened behind her. Grace spun around. He stood there in sweatpants. Hair messy. Eyes bloodshot. He looked at her. She looked back. You got a big mouth, Grace. Grace pulled the fitted sheet off the mattress. I told your mother what I saw. Yeah, you did. And now you're going to regret that. Are you threatening me? Connor laughed. Walked into the room. Closed the door behind him. I don't need to threaten you. You're already fucked. You know that, right? Grace grabbed the dirty sheets. Tried to walk past him. He blocked her path. Excuse me. In a minute. We need to talk. I have work to do. Grace. His voice dropped. Sit down. No. Sit. Down. Something in his tone made her legs move. She sat on the edge of the bed. Connor stood over her. You think you're doing the right thing standing up for that girl? You think you're some kind of hero? Grace didn't answer. Let me tell you what's going to happen. My dad already called her. Offered her $20,000 to forget last night ever happened. She took it. Because people like her, people like you always take the money. You know why? Because you need it more than you need your morals. Grace's chest tightened. She took it, signed the papers this morning. Said she was drunk. Said it was consensual. Said she's sorry for causing trouble. Connor smiled. So your testimony meaningless. It's her word against yours. And she's already on my side. Grace stood up. Get out of my way. Or what? Move. Connor didn't move. Instead he stepped closer. You cost me 20 grand, Grace. 20 grand to clean up your mess. My parents are pissed. And when they're pissed, guess who suffers? Grace tried to push past him. He grabbed her arm. The same wrist he'd bruised before. She gasped. That's right. You remember this feeling, you remember what happens when you step out of line. He squeezed harder. Stay in your lane, Grace. Clean the house. Cook the food. Keep your mouth shut. Or next time it won't just be a bruise. He let go. Walked out. Left the door open. Grace stood there holding the dirty sheets, arm throbbing. She wanted to scream. Wanted to throw something. Instead, she walked downstairs to the laundry room and started the washing machine. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Margaret called her into the living room at noon. Richard was there too. First time Grace had seen them together in weeks. Sit down, Grace. Grace sat on the edge of the white couch. Margaret and Richard stood. We need to have a conversation about last night, Richard said. His lawyer voice. Calm. Controlled. Deadly. My son made a mistake. A serious mistake. But it's been handled. The young woman has been compensated. She's agreed not to press charges or speak to anyone about this incident. As far as the law is concerned, nothing happened. Grace's jaw clenched. But something did happen. Did it? Richard tilted his head. According to the girl's signed statement, she came here willingly. Drank too much. Got confused. My son tried to help her. She panicked. End of story. That's not what I saw. What you saw, Margaret cut in, was a drunk girl making bad decisions. What you saw was my son trying to be a gentleman. What you saw was a misunderstanding that you blew out of proportion because you don't understand how young people interact these days. Grace's hands fisted in her lap. He was forcing her. He was not, Richard said. Sharp. And you need to be very careful about making accusations like that. Slander is a serious offense. We could sue you for defamation. We could have you arrested for making false statements. We could call immigration. Take your pick. Grace's throat closed. I'm not lying. Then you're mistaken. Either way, this conversation is over. The girl has been taken care of. The matter is closed. And you, Grace, are going to forget this ever happened. Do you understand? Grace wanted to say no. Wanted to walk out. Wanted to call the police herself. But she couldn't. Because they were right. She had no power here. No voice. No choice. Do you understand? Richard repeated. Yes. Good. Now about your compensation. Margaret tells me she already docked your pay this week. I think that's fair given the circumstances. Consider it a reminder to mind your business in the future. They dismissed her. Grace went back to the kitchen. Started chopping vegetables for dinner. The knife slipped. Cut her finger. Blood dripped onto the cutting board. She ran it under cold water. Wrapped it in a paper towel. Kept cooking. That night she called Marie. It was Sunday. Her 10 minutes. Mama, I've been trying to reach you all week. I'm sorry, baby. I've been busy. Mama, guess what Jacques proposed? We're getting married in 3 months. You're coming, right? You have to come. 3 months. Grace's wedding was in 3 months. The wedding Grace had been saving for. The wedding Grace would never attend because she had no papers to leave the country and no papers to come back. Mama, you still there? I'm here. So you'll come? Grace closed her eyes. I'll try. What do you mean you'll try, Mama? It's my wedding. I know, baby. I know. It's just complicated right now. What's complicated? You take a plane. You come home. What's complicated about that? Grace's throat burned. I can't explain right now. Can't or won't. Marie, you've been gone 3 years, Mama. 3 years. And now you're telling me you might not come to my wedding. Do you even care about us anymore? The words hit like a slap. Of course I care. Everything I do is for you and Jean. Then prove it. Come home. I can't. Why not? Because I have no papers. Because I'm here illegally. Because if I leave I can never come back, and then who's going to pay for your nursing school? Who's going to pay for Jean's medical school? Who's going to? Grace stopped. She was yelling. She never yelled. She pressed her hand over her mouth. Silence on the other end. Then Marie's voice quiet. You're illegal. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Yes. How long since I got here? 3 years. 3 years, and you never told us. I didn't want you to worry. Worry, Mama. I thought you were coming back. I thought you just needed to save money and you'd come home. But you're never coming home, are you? Marie, please. You chose America over us. I chose survival, number. You chose money. You chose their money over your family. The line went dead. Marie had hung up. Grace sat on her basement bed, phone in hand, and realized she'd just lost her daughter. Not physically. Worse. Emotionally. Marie was done with her. And Grace couldn't even blame her. She lay down, stared at the concrete ceiling, wondered if any of this was worth it. Wondered if she should just walk out of this house and turn herself in to immigration and go home and start over. But she couldn't. Because Jean still needed medical school money. Because giving up now meant the last 3 years were for nothing. Because she'd already sacrificed so much, and if she stopped now, what was it all for? She fell asleep still in her uniform. Again. The next 6 weeks were hell. Margaret increased her workload. Grace was up at 4, down at 2. 22-hour days. Her body screamed. Her hands cracked and bled. She lost weight. Her uniform hung loose. Connor started bringing girls home twice a week. Always young. Always drunk. Grace would hear them laughing. Then crying. Then leaving. She kept her door locked. Kept her headphones in. Tried not to hear. But she couldn't unhear everything. One night she heard it again. The screaming. Grace sat up in bed. Put her headphones on. Turned the music up loud. But it wasn't loud enough. She could still hear the girl begging. Still hear Connor laughing. She pulled the headphones off. Ran upstairs. Connor's door was closed but not locked. She pushed it open. This girl was younger. Maybe 15. Dark hair. Hispanic. She was on the bed fully clothed, trying to push Connor off. Stop, I want to leave, come on, don't be like that. Grace flipped the light switch. Connor let her go. Connor turned. His face went dark. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Let her go. Get out, Grace. I'm calling the police. Connor got off the bed. Walked toward Grace. No, you're not. Yes, I am. With what phone? You don't have a phone. Grace pulled her prepaid phone from her pocket. Held it up. Yes, I do. Connor's eyes narrowed. My mom know about that. I don't care if she knows. You should. Because that's against the rules. Personal phones. Personal calls. You're breaking contract. There is no contract. There never was. Connor lunged. Grabbed the phone. Grace tried to hold on. They struggled. The phone fell. Connor stomped on it. The screen shattered. The girl on the bed scrambled up. Ran out the door. Down the stairs. Grace heard the front door open and slam shut. Connor turned to Grace. His face was pure rage. You just cost me another 20 grand. Good. He shoved her. Grace stumbled back. Hit the wall. You stupid bitch. You don't know when to quit. And you don't know when to stop raping girls. Connor's hand shot out. Grabbed Grace's throat. Slammed her against the wall. Grace couldn't breathe. She clawed at his hand. He squeezed harder. Say that again. Say it. Grace couldn't speak. Black spots danced in her vision. Connor let her go. Margaret's voice. Connor dropped Grace. She collapsed to the floor, gasping. Margaret stood in the doorway. Hair in curlers. Face cream on. She looked at Connor. Looked at Grace. Her expression didn't change. What happened? She let another girl go, Connor said. She's trying to sabotage me. Is that true? Grace was still gasping for air. She nodded. Margaret sighed. Like this was an inconvenience. Like her son hadn't just tried to strangle someone. Grace, go to your room. Connor, go to bed. We'll deal with this in the morning. Grace pulled herself up. Walked downstairs on shaking legs. Locked her door. Sat on the floor with her back against it. Her throat hurt. She touched it. It was already swelling. She looked at her broken phone on the floor where Connor must have thrown it after her. Pieces of plastic and glass. Her only connection to the outside world. Gone. She started laughing. Quiet at first. Then louder. Then she was laughing and crying at the same time, hands pressed over her mouth so they wouldn't hear her upstairs. She'd hit bottom. This was rock bottom. Strangled in a house where she had no voice, no phone, no way to call for help. And the worst part, she'd go back upstairs tomorrow morning and keep working. Because she had no choice. The next morning Margaret called her into the living room. Grace's throat was purple with bruises. She'd tried to cover them with the collar of her uniform, but it didn't work. Margaret sat on the couch. Legs crossed. Coffee in hand. She looked at Grace's neck. That looks bad. Grace didn't respond. Connor says you attacked him. Says he was defending himself. That's a lie. Is it because from where I'm sitting you've been causing nothing but problems since that first incident? You're insubordinate. You're disrespectful. You interfere with Connor's personal life. And now you're getting physical. Grace's hands shook with rage. He was hurting another girl. He was entertaining a guest in his own home. What business is that of yours? She was 15. Was she? Did you ask for ID? Did you check, or are you just assuming because it fits your narrative? Grace wanted to scream. I know what I saw. What you saw was my son with a girl who came here willingly. What you saw was yourself inserting yourself into situations that don't concern you. And I'm done with it, Grace. I'm done. Grace's heart stopped. What does that mean? It means you're on probation. One more incident, one more complaint from Connor, one more time you step out of line and you're out. Out of this house. Out of this country. Understand you can't. I can. And I will. Richard has ice on speed dial. We've been protecting you for 3 years. Don't make us regret that. Grace's legs felt weak. Please, Mrs. Johnson, no. I'm done listening to your excuses. You have one job. Clean. Cook. Stay out of the way. Can you do that? Grace's voice came out broken. Yes. Good. Now get back to work. And Grace, wear a scarf. That bruise is unsightly. Grace went to her room. Found a scarf. Wrapped it around her neck. Looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall. She didn't recognize the woman staring back. Hollow eyes. Gaunt cheeks. A scarf hiding bruises from attempted strangulation. This was what she'd become. A ghost. A slave. A witness to crimes she couldn't report. She went upstairs. Started cleaning. Connor was in the kitchen eating breakfast. He didn't look at her. She didn't look at him. But when she walked past him to get to the sink, he spoke. Quiet. Just loud enough for her to hear. Next time I won't stop. Grace's hands gripped the sponge. She kept walking. Kept cleaning. Kept pretending she didn't hear him. That night there was another girl. Grace heard the crying around midnight. She put her pillow over her head. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. At 2 a.m. the house went silent. Grace waited. Listened. Nothing. At 2:30 she heard footsteps. Connor's voice. Grace, get up here. Grace didn't move. Grace, now she got up. Walked upstairs. Her heart hammered. Connor was standing in the foyer. His hands were shaking. There was blood on his shirt. We have a problem. Grace's stomach dropped. What did you do? She fell. In the bathroom. Hit her head. There's a lot of blood. Where is she? Basement bathroom. But Grace, she's not moving. Grace ran. Down the stairs. To the small bathroom at the end of the hall. The girl was on the floor. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Maybe 17. There was blood pooling under her head. Grace knelt down. Checked for a pulse. Found one. Weak, but there. She's alive. We need to call an ambulance. No. Grace turned. Connor was in the doorway. What do you mean no? We can't call anyone. She's 17. She's drunk. She's high. If we call 911 there are questions. Police. Investigations. She needs a hospital and I need to not go to jail. Grace stared at him. You're going to let her die? She's not going to die. She's just unconscious. She'll wake up. Connor, clean her up. Stop the bleeding. When she wakes up we'll take her home. Tell her she fell. Give her money. She'll be fine. Grace looked at the girl. Blood was still seeping from her head. She needs stitches. Maybe surgery. Then you better figure it out. Connor left. Grace sat on the bathroom floor next to an unconscious 17-year-old girl and realized this was it. This was the moment. The moment she became complicit, not just in silence but in action. If she cleaned this girl up and didn't call 911 and the girl died, Grace was an accomplice to manslaughter. Maybe murder. But if she called 911, Connor and Margaret would have her deported before the ambulance arrived. And this girl would still be alone. Still be in danger. Grace pulled out towels. Pressed them to the girl's head. The bleeding slowed. The girl's eyes fluttered. It's okay, Grace whispered. You're okay. The girl's eyes opened. Confused. Scared. Where am I? You're safe. You fell. Hit your head. I want to go home. I know. We're going to get you home. The girl tried to sit up. Grace helped her. The bleeding had stopped. The cut wasn't as deep as Grace had feared. Maybe she'd be okay. Maybe. Grace cleaned the wound. Bandaged it. Helped the girl stand. Walked her upstairs. Connor was waiting by the front door with $300 in cash. For your trouble, he said to the girl. And remember, you fell. That's all. You drank too much. You fell. Accidents happen. The girl took the money. Nodded. She was too scared to argue. Connor called her an Uber. The girl left. Grace watched the car drive away. Connor turned to her. Good job, Grace. See, we make a good team. Grace felt vomit rising in her throat. She pushed past him, went downstairs, back to the bathroom. There was still blood on the floor, on the walls, on the mirror. She grabbed the bleach, the scrub brush, and started cleaning. That's what she did now. She cleaned up after Connor's violence. She helped him cover his tracks. She'd become exactly what Margaret wanted. Complicit, silent, obedient. She scrubbed the floor until the water ran clear. Until her hands were raw. Until she couldn't see the blood anymore. But she could still see it. Every time she closed her eyes. Every waking moment. The blood was always there. And Grace was drowning in it. Grace stopped eating. Not on purpose. She just forgot. Food didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered. She moved through the house like a machine. Clean. Cook. Stay silent. Repeat. 2 weeks after the bathroom incident, Margaret found her collapsed in the kitchen. Grace woke up on the floor with Margaret standing over her. When's the last time you ate? Grace couldn't remember. Yesterday. Liar. You look like a skeleton. Get up. Grace tried. Her legs wouldn't work. Margaret sighed and called Richard. Your housekeeper's starving herself. Deal with it. Richard drove Grace to a clinic. Paid cash. No insurance. No records. The doctor said she was severely malnourished. Dehydrated. Anemic. He asked if she was being abused. Richard answered before Grace could. She's been sick. We're taking care of her. The doctor didn't believe him. Grace could see it in his eyes. But he gave her IV fluids and vitamins and sent her home anyway. Because that's what doctors do when they're paid enough. In the car, Richard spoke. You're worthless to us, dead Grace. Eat. That was it. That was his concern. Not her health. Her usefulness. Grace started eating again. Small amounts. Enough to stay standing. Enough to keep working. But something inside her had shifted. She couldn't name it yet. But it was there. Growing. A small ember of rage that wouldn't go out. Connor brought another girl home the next week. Grace heard them in his room. Heard the girl say no. Heard Connor laugh. Grace walked to his door. Knocked. What let her leave? The door opened. Connor stood there shirtless. Are you serious right now? Let her leave. Or what? Grace, what are you going to do? Grace didn't answer. She pushed past him. The girl was sitting on the bed, fully dressed, arms wrapped around herself. She was crying. Come with me, Grace said. The girl stood up. Connor grabbed Grace's arm. Grace yanked it away. Harder than she meant to. Her elbow caught Connor in the face. His nose started bleeding. You bitch. Grace didn't stop. She took the girl's hand. Led her downstairs. Out the front door. Into the night. Run, Grace said. Run and don't come back. The girl ran. Grace turned around. Connor was on the porch holding his nose. Blood dripped through his fingers. You're done. You're so fucking done. Good. Grace walked past him. Back into the house. She went to her room. Packed her plastic bag. Everything she owned fit inside. She sat on her bed and waited. Margaret arrived 20 minutes later. She didn't knock. Just walked in. You hit my son. Yes. You let another girl go. Yes. You're fired. Get out. Tonight. Grace stood up. Grabbed her bag. Fine. And Grace, if you ever tell anyone what happened in this house, we'll have you arrested for assault. We'll tell them you attacked Connor unprovoked. Who do you think they'll believe? Grace walked past her. Up the stairs. Out the front door. Into the street. It was midnight. She had no phone. No money. Margaret hadn't paid her in 3 weeks. No plan. Nowhere to go. She started walking. She walked for hours. Her feet blistered. Her back ached. She had no idea where she was going. Just away. Away from that house. Away from Connor. Away from the blood she'd cleaned up for the last 6 months. At dawn, she sat down on a bench at a bus stop. She stared at nothing. Thought about nothing. She was free. Homeless and broke and probably going to be deported, but free. A woman sat down next to her. Older. Black. Kind eyes. You okay, honey? Grace shook her head. No. You need help? I need everything. The woman pulled out her phone. Made a call. 20 minutes later a van pulled up. 3 women got out. They helped Grace stand. Helped her into the van. Drove her to a building in Little Haiti. This is a shelter, one of them said. For women like you. You're safe here. Grace didn't believe her. She'd learned that safety was a lie. But she went inside anyway because she had nowhere else to go. They gave her a bed. A shower. Clean clothes. Food. Grace ate mechanically. The women asked her questions. She answered in single words. Yes. No. Haiti. 3 years. They didn't push. They let her sleep. Grace slept for 16 hours straight. When she woke up, a woman was sitting next to her bed. Jamaican accent. Warm smile. Her name was Diana. You're awake. Good. How you feeling? Tired? I bet. You want to talk about what happened? Number. Okay. You want to know where you are? Grace nodded. This is the harbor. We help undocumented women who've been abused, exploited, trafficked. You're safe here. Nobody can touch you. You understand? Grace's throat closed. They'll find me. Who will? The family. The Johnsons. They'll call immigration. They'll have me deported. Diana's expression hardened. The Johnsons in Coral Gables, you know them? I know of them. Richard Johnson, the lawyer. Margaret, the real estate woman. Connor, their son. Yes. Grace, you're the 4th woman who's come here from that house in 2 years. Grace sat up. What 4 women? Same story. Exploitation. Abuse. Connor assaulting girls. The family paying them off. You're not the first. Grace's hands started shaking. Why didn't anyone stop them? Because the women were all undocumented. All too scared to testify. All took money to stay quiet. But Grace, I think we have enough now. Enough testimonies. Enough evidence. We can stop them. But we need you to help. How? Testify. Tell the police everything. Every girl Connor hurt. Every time they threatened you. Everything. Grace's stomach turned. They'll deport me. Maybe. But there's something called a U visa. For victims of crimes. If you testify, if you help convict them, you can apply for legal status. It's not guaranteed, but it's a chance. A chance. Grace hadn't had one of those in 3 years. What if they don't convict? What if I testify and nothing happens and I get deported anyway? Diana took her hand. Then at least you tried. At least you spoke up. At least those girls know someone fought for them. Grace thought about the blonde girl in Connor's room. The Hispanic girl in the basement. The one who hit her head. All the ones she'd heard crying and done nothing about. Okay, Grace said. I'll testify. Diana smiled. Good. I'll call our lawyer. Her name's Maria. She's tough. She'll help you. Maria arrived that afternoon. Sharp suit. Sharper eyes. She sat across from Grace with a legal pad and pen. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Grace told her. All of it. The exploitation. The threats. Connor's assaults. The girls. The blood. The cover-ups. Her voice shook. She cried. But she didn't stop talking. Maria wrote everything down. When Grace finished, Maria looked up. This is good. This is really good. But Grace, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be hard. The Johnsons have money. They have lawyers. They're going to come at you with everything. They're going to try to discredit you. Call you a liar. A scorned employee. Someone with an agenda. I know. And there's a chance you lose. A chance Connor walks free and you get deported. I know. But if we win, if we convict him, you'll have legal status. You can work. You can travel. You can see your children. Grace's chest tightened. Marie. Jean. She hadn't talked to them in weeks. Marie hadn't returned her calls. Jean had stopped trying. When do we start? Now. I'm filing the police report today. They'll want to interview you tomorrow. After that it moves fast. Are you ready? Grace wasn't ready. She'd never be ready. But she nodded anyway. Yes. The police interview happened in a small room at the station. 2 detectives. Both white. Both men. They looked at Grace like she was something dirty. You worked for the Johnsons for how long? 6 months. And during that time you witnessed their son assault multiple women? Yes. But you never reported it. Grace's jaw clenched. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Being deported. One detective leaned back. Crossed his arms. So you let women get raped because you were worried about your immigration status, Maria cut in. Detective, my client was being threatened. She was being exploited. She's a victim here too. Is she, or is she just mad she got fired? Grace's hands fisted under the table. I'm not lying. Then why should we believe you? You're an illegal immigrant with no proof. No videos. No recordings. Just your word against a family with a spotless reputation. I have the earrings. Both detectives looked up. What earrings? Grace pulled them from her pocket. 3 of them. Small. Gold. Different styles. From 3 different girls. I found them in Connor's room. After. Maria's eyes widened. She hadn't known about these. One detective took them. Examined them. You kept these? Yes. Why? I don't know. Maybe I knew I'd need them someday. The detectives looked at each other. Something shifted in their expressions. We'll need to test these. See if we can match them to any missing persons reports or assault cases. There's more, Grace said. There's blood. In the basement bathroom. I cleaned it, but I didn't use bleach everywhere. I missed some spots. On purpose. The other detective leaned forward. You're saying there's DNA evidence in that house? Yes. Can you get us in? I don't have a key anymore. We'll get a warrant. They did. 3 days later, a team of forensic investigators descended on the Johnson house. Margaret called Grace's phone. Diana had gotten her a new one, screaming, "You did this, you lying bitch. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us." Grace hung up. They found the blood. They matched the DNA to a girl named Emily Santos. 16 years old. She'd reported an assault 3 months ago but dropped the charges after her family received $20,000. The earrings matched 2 other girls who'd filed similar reports. All had dropped charges. All had been paid off. The case built fast. Connor was arrested. Richard tried to get him out on bail. The judge denied it. Too much evidence. Too many victims. Flight risk. Margaret showed up at the harbor. Diana wouldn't let her in. Grace watched from the window as Margaret screamed on the sidewalk. "You're destroying my family. My son's life is over because of you. I hope you're happy." Grace wasn't happy. She wasn't anything. She was numb. The trial date was set. 3 months away. Maria prepared Grace for testimony. Told her what questions to expect. How to stay calm. How to not let them break her. They're going to make you look bad. Make you look like you're just after money or revenge. You need to stay calm. Stick to the facts. Don't get emotional. I'll try. Don't try. Do it. Your testimony could make or break this case. Grace practiced her testimony every day. Went over it with Diana. With Maria. With the other women at the shelter who'd survived similar trauma. They supported her. Encouraged her. Told her she was brave. Grace didn't feel brave. She felt terrified. 2 weeks before the trial, she got a call. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Mama. Grace's heart stopped. Marie. Mama, I saw the news. About the trial. About the family you worked for. Is it true? Did all that really happen? Grace's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Oh, Mama. Marie's voice broke. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I said those things. I didn't know. I didn't know what you were going through. It's okay, baby. No, it's not. I was angry and selfish and I didn't understand. But I understand now. And Mama, I'm proud of you. So proud. You're so brave. Grace couldn't speak. She just cried. After 3 years of silence and shame and fear, her daughter was proud of her. Jean wants to talk to you. Jean got on the phone. Mama, we're coming to America. For the trial. We're going to be there. We're going to support you. But the money, we sold some things. Borrowed some. We're coming. You're not doing this alone. Grace sobbed. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't alone. The day before the trial, Grace stood in front of a mirror in the shelter. Diana stood behind her. You ready? Grace looked at her reflection. She'd gained weight back. The bruises were gone. Her eyes were clearer. She looked like herself again. Almost. I'm ready. Remember, tell the truth. Don't let them intimidate you. You're not nobody, Grace. You're somebody. You're a mother. A survivor. A warrior. Grace nodded. She didn't feel like a warrior. But maybe that's what warriors felt like before battle. Scared. Uncertain. But willing to fight anyway. The trial started the next morning. Grace sat in the witness waiting room with Maria. Marie and Jean were in the courtroom. Grace had seen them that morning. Hugged them. Cried with them. Now they were waiting to watch her testify. The bailiff called her name. Grace Toussaint. Grace stood. Walked into the courtroom. Every eye turned to her. Margaret sat in the front row. Richard next to her. Connor at the defense table in a suit. He looked smaller than she remembered. Less threatening. But when their eyes met, his expression was pure hatred. Grace walked to the witness stand. Placed her hand on the Bible. Swore to tell the truth. Sat down. The prosecutor stood. A woman named Catherine Reynolds. Sharp. Professional. Ms. Toussaint, can you tell the court how you came to work for the Johnson family? Grace told them. Everything. The prosecutor asked questions. Grace answered. She described the exploitation. The threats. The girls. Connor's violence. The cover-ups. Connor's lawyer stood for cross-examination. Tall man. Expensive suit. Condescending smile. Ms. Toussaint, isn't it true that you were fired for assaulting my client? I pushed him away when he grabbed me. So you admit you attacked him? I defended myself. And isn't it true that you're only testifying because you're angry about being fired? No, then why didn't you report these alleged assaults when they happened? Because I was threatened with deportation. Or because they never happened? Grace's hands clenched. They happened. You expect this jury to believe that you, an illegal immigrant, witnessed multiple assaults and said nothing, that you cleaned up blood and stayed silent? What kind of person does that? Grace's voice shook. A scared person. A desperate person. A person who had no choice. You always have a choice, Ms. Toussaint. No. You always have a choice. I didn't. Not when my children needed me. Not when I had no papers, no voice, no power. You don't get to judge me when you've never been in my position. The lawyer paused. Grace had broken script. Maria had told her not to get emotional. But Grace was done being silent. I did what I had to do to survive. But I'm not doing it anymore. I'm telling the truth now. And you can try to discredit me, try to make me look bad, but it won't change what happened. It won't change the fact that your client hurt those girls. It won't change the blood I cleaned up. It won't change anything. The courtroom was silent. The lawyer sat down. The prosecutor stood. No further questions, Your Honor. Grace stepped down. Walked past Connor. He whispered as she passed. You're dead. Grace kept walking. Out of the courtroom. Into the hallway. Marie and Jean were waiting. They hugged her. She collapsed into their arms and cried. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Other women testified. Emily Santos. 2 others. Forensic experts testified about the DNA. Financial experts testified about the payoffs. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Grace sat in the waiting room holding Marie's hand, praying. The verdict came back. Guilty. On all counts. Sexual assault. Coercion. Labor trafficking facilitation. Connor Johnson was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Richard and Margaret were fined and faced civil suits from the victims. Their reputation was destroyed. Grace stood outside the courthouse with Maria, Diana, Marie and Jean. News cameras swarmed. Maria gave a statement. Then she turned to Grace. You want to say anything? Grace looked at the cameras. At the reporters. At the world that had ignored her for so long. My name is Grace Toussaint. I am a mother. I am an immigrant. And I am not invisible anymore. The cameras kept flashing. Reporters shouted questions. Grace stood on the courthouse steps, Marie on one side, Jean on the other, and for the first time in 3 years she didn't feel invisible. Maria touched her arm. We need to go. Immigration hearing is tomorrow. The moment shattered. Tomorrow. Grace had almost forgotten. Just because Connor was convicted didn't mean she was safe. She was still illegal. Still deportable. The U visa application had been filed, but it could take months. Years. Or never get approved at all. They drove back to the harbor in silence. Marie held Grace's hand the whole way. In the van, Jean finally spoke. Mama, what happens if they deport you tomorrow? Grace didn't answer. She didn't know. That night Grace couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed at the shelter staring at the ceiling. Marie was asleep in the next bed. Jean on a cot by the door. Her children were here. With her. After 3 years apart. And tomorrow she might lose them again. At 3 a.m. she got up. Went to the bathroom. splashed water on her face. Looked in the mirror. The woman staring back looked older. Tired. But stronger somehow. Like she'd survived a war. She had survived a war. Diana found her there. Can't sleep number. Me neither. First hearing is always hard. Diana leaned against the sink. Grace, I want you to know something. No matter what happens tomorrow, you did the right thing. You spoke up. You helped convict a rapist. That matters. But if they send me back, then you go back knowing you saved other women from what you went through. That's not nothing. Grace's throat tightened. I don't want to leave my children again. I know. But Grace, you taught them something important. You taught them that justice matters more than fear. That speaking up matters more than staying safe. That's a gift. Grace nodded. She wasn't sure she believed it. But she wanted to. The immigration hearing was at 9 a.m. Grace sat in a small room with Marie and Jean. An immigration judge entered. White man. Maybe 60. He looked tired. Case number 2847. Grace Toussaint. Illegal entry. Overstay. Application for U visa pending. He looked up. Ms. Toussaint, you're here because you testified against Connor Johnson in a criminal case. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you're applying for a U visa based on your status as a crime victim and material witness? Yes. But you were also in this country illegally for 3 years. You worked without authorization. You violated multiple immigration laws. Why should I not deport you today? Maria stood. Your Honor, my client was being exploited. She was threatened with deportation if she spoke up. She was a victim of labor trafficking. Was she convicted of labor trafficking? No, but then legally she wasn't trafficked. She was an illegal worker who got fired. The judge looked at Grace. Ms. Toussaint, did the Johnsons physically prevent you from leaving? Grace's hands clenched. No, but did they lock you in the house number? Did they take your passport? I never had a passport. So you could have left at any time. You chose to stay. You chose to work illegally. You chose to stay silent about crimes you witnessed. Correct. Grace felt the trap closing again. Different room. Different man. Same judgment. I was afraid. Everyone's afraid, Ms. Toussaint. That doesn't excuse breaking the law. He looked at his papers. I'm denying your U visa application. You'll be deported within 30 days. This hearing is adjourned. He stood up. Maria jumped up. Your Honor, please, my decision is final. Next case. Grace sat frozen. Marie was crying. Jean looked like he'd been punched. Maria was arguing with the judge's clerk. But Grace couldn't hear any of it. She could only hear one word. Deported. 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 In the hallway, Maria's face was pale. I'm so sorry, Grace. I thought we had a strong case. I thought it's okay. It's not okay. This is bullshit. We're going to appeal. We're going to fight this. How long does an appeal take? Maria hesitated. Months. Maybe a year. And where do I stay while we wait here? At the harbor. They won't come for you here. Diana has connections. She can keep you safe. But Grace was tired of hiding. Tired of being safe. Tired of running. Marie grabbed her hand. Mama, we'll figure this out. We'll number. Grace's voice was steady. You two need to go home. Back to Haiti. You have school. You have lives. We're not leaving you. Yes, you are. I'll be fine. I'll appeal. I'll fight. But you can't put your lives on hold for me. Not again. Jean's jaw set. We just got you back. And you'll have me again. But right now you need to go home. Please. They argued. But Grace was firm. 3 days later she drove them to the airport. Hugged them goodbye. Watched them walk through security. Marie looked back twice. Grace waved. Smiled. Pretended her heart wasn't breaking. When they were gone, she sat in the parking lot and cried until she had nothing left. Diana found her there an hour later. Drove her back to the harbor. Grace went to her room. Lay on the bed. Stared at the ceiling. 30 days. She had 30 days left in America. 30 days before she was sent back to Haiti with nothing. No money. No future. Just shame. She must have fallen asleep because she woke up to Diana shaking her. Grace. Grace, wake up. Someone's here to see you. Grace sat up. Her head felt foggy. Who come see? In the common room a young woman stood by the window. Blonde hair. Nervous hands. Grace recognized her immediately. Emily Santos. The girl whose blood Grace had found in the basement. Ms. Toussaint. Emily's voice shook. I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to say thank you. For testifying. For keeping the evidence. For saving me. Grace stood up. Walked closer. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Because of you, he's in prison. Because of you, I got justice. Because of you, I'm not afraid anymore. Grace's eyes burned. I should have helped you sooner. You helped when you could. That's what matters. Emily pulled an envelope from her bag. This is for you. The civil suit against the Johnsons. We won. They had to pay us all compensation. This is your share. $50,000. For pain and suffering. For what they did to you. Grace stared at the envelope. $50,000. More money than she'd ever seen. I can't take this. Yes, you can. It's yours. You earned it. Emily pressed it into Grace's hands. Use it. Start over. Build a life. Be free. Emily left. Grace stood there holding $50,000. She'd been paid $3 an hour for 6 months of hell. And now she had $50,000. It felt wrong. Like blood money. But it also felt like possibility. Maria called that evening. Grace, we got something. An immigration lawyer who specializes in appeals. She thinks she can get the judge's decision overturned. But it's expensive. $5,000. Grace looked at the envelope. I have it. What, I have the money. From the civil suit. Maria's voice changed. Excited. Grace, that changes everything. With that money we can fight. We can win. Do you want to do this? Grace thought about Marie. Jean. The harbor. The women she'd met here. The women she could help. Yes. Let's fight. The appeal took 4 months. 4 months of waiting. Working at the harbor as a volunteer. Helping other women like her. Listening to their stories. Realizing she wasn't alone. Realizing her story mattered. One night a Guatemalan woman named Rosa came to the shelter. Beaten. Terrified. She'd been working for a family in Miami. Rich. White. Sound familiar? Grace sat with her. Held her hand. Tell me what happened. Rosa told her. The same story. Exploitation. Abuse. Threats. Grace listened. And when Rosa finished, Grace said, you're not going back there. But I have no papers. No money. Nowhere to go. You have here. You have us. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to teach you what I learned. How to fight. How to speak up. How to survive. Rosa cried. Grace held her. And in that moment Grace realized something. This was her purpose. This was why she'd survived. Not just for her children. But for women like Rosa. Women like herself. Women who needed someone to show them they weren't invisible. Diana found her later. You're good at this. At helping them. I know their pain. You do. Grace, I want to offer you a job. Here. At the harbor. Helping women navigate the legal system. Helping them apply for U visas. Helping them heal. It doesn't pay much. But it's legal work. It helps your case. Grace looked around the shelter. At the women sleeping in beds. Safe. Protected. Healing. I'll take it. The appeal hearing was in December. Grace wore the same dress she'd worn to Connor's trial. Maria stood next to her. Diana in the back row. The new judge was a woman. Latina. Younger. She read the case file carefully. Ms. Toussaint, I've reviewed your case. I've read the original judge's decision. And I disagree with it. She looked up. You were a victim. You were exploited. You were threatened. And when you found the courage to speak up, you helped convict a serial predator. That takes bravery. That takes character. That deserves consideration. Grace's heart hammered. I'm overturning the deportation order. I'm granting your U visa application pending final approval from USCIS. You'll receive temporary status immediately. Full status should follow within 6 months. Congratulations, Ms. Toussaint. Welcome to America. Grace couldn't breathe. Maria was hugging her. Diana was crying. The judge smiled and moved to the next case. Just like that. Grace was legal. Grace was staying. Grace was free. Outside the courthouse, Grace called Marie. Baby, I'm staying. They approved it. I'm staying. Marie screamed. Happy screaming. Mama, oh my God, Jean, Mama's staying. Jean got on the phone. Mama, does this mean you can visit? Can you come home? Grace thought about that word. Haiti was home. But so was Miami now. So was the harbor. So were the women she helped. Yes, Grace said. I can visit. Soon. She visited Haiti 3 months later. First time in 4 years. Marie met her at the airport. Jean was there too. They'd both graduated. Marie from nursing school. Jean from medical school. Both because Grace had sacrificed everything. They drove to the village. Everything looked smaller. Different. Grace walked through the streets and felt like a ghost visiting her old life. Marie's wedding was beautiful. Small. Intimate. Grace stood next to her daughter and cried through the whole ceremony. Afterwards Marie hugged her. Thank you for coming, Mama. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. You were always here. In your heart. We knew that. Grace stayed 2 weeks. Then she went back to Miami. Back to the harbor. Back to work. The women kept coming. Women from Honduras, El Salvador, Haiti, Guatemala, Mexico, all with the same story. All invisible. All voiceless. And Grace helped them find their voices. 1 year after the trial, Grace got her permanent U visa. She was fully legal now. She could work anywhere. Do anything. Diana asked her, what do you want to do now? Grace looked around the harbor. At the women. At the hope. Stay here. Keep helping. You sure you could make more money somewhere else? I don't need more money. I need purpose. This is my purpose. 2 years after the trial, Grace was leading a support group for trafficking survivors. 10 women. All undocumented. All afraid. She stood in front of them. I know you're scared. I know you feel powerless. I know you think you're invisible. But you're not. You're strong. You're survivors. And you have a voice. You just need to use it. One woman raised her hand. But what if they deport us? Then you fight. You appeal. You don't give up. Because giving up means they win. And we don't let them win. Not anymore. Another woman asked, how did you do it? How did you survive? Grace thought about it. Really thought about it. I survived because I had to. Because my children needed me. Because I refused to stay invisible. Because I learned that my voice mattered. Even when they tried to silence me. Even when I felt like nobody. I learned I was somebody. And so are you. All of you. The women cried. Hugged each other. Hugged Grace. And Grace realized this was healing. Not just for them. For her too. 3 years after the trial, Grace got a letter. From Connor Johnson. Prison letter. She almost threw it away. But curiosity made her open it. Grace, I know you won't believe this, but I'm sorry. For everything. I was a monster. I hurt people. I hurt you. And I deserved what I got. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you found peace. I'm trying to find it too. Connor. Grace read it twice. Then she burned it. Not out of anger. Out of closure. Connor's apology didn't matter. Her healing didn't depend on his guilt or his growth. It depended on her. And she was healed. Or at least healing. Every day. A little more. 5 years after the trial, Marie visited with her daughter. Grace's granddaughter. Named Grace. Little Grace. Grace held her and cried. This was why she'd survived. For this. For family. For future. For hope. Marie said, Mama, are you happy? Grace looked at her daughter. Her granddaughter. The life she'd built. The women she'd helped. Yes, baby. I'm happy. Good. Because you deserve it. You deserve everything. Grace didn't know about deserving. But she knew about surviving. About fighting. About refusing to be invisible. And that was enough. Now, years later, Grace sits in her small office at the harbor. The walls are covered with photos. Women she's helped. Success stories. U visas approved. Lives rebuilt. Families reunited. Every photo is a reminder. She's not invisible. None of them are. A knock on the door. A new woman. Scared. Alone. Undocumented. Grace stands up. Smiles. Come in. Sit down. Tell me your story. The woman sits. Starts talking. Grace listens. And when the woman finishes, Grace takes her hand. I know it's scary. I know you feel trapped. I know you think you have no choice. But you do. You always have a choice. You can stay silent or you can speak up. You can stay invisible or you can make yourself seen. I chose to speak up. I chose to be seen. And you can too. The woman looks at her. Eyes red. Voice breaking. How do I do that? Grace smiles. First you tell the truth. Then you let people help you. Then you help others. That's how you survive. That's how you win. That's how you become visible. The woman nods. Wipes her eyes. Okay. I'll try. Good. That's all I ask. Just try. Grace walks the woman out. Goes back to her office. Looks at the photos on the wall. Thinks about the girl she was. 35 years old. Standing on a Miami dock with nothing but fear and hope. Thinks about the woman she became. 58 years old. Cleaning blood off a basement floor. $3 an hour. No voice. No choice. No power. And now, 63 years old. Legal. Free. Working. Helping. Living. She survived. She fought. She won. Not because she was strong. But because she refused to stay broken. Not because she was brave. But because she was tired of being afraid. Not because she was special. But because she learned that everyone is special. Everyone matters. Everyone deserves to be seen. Grace Toussaint was invisible for 3 years. But she's not invisible anymore. And neither are the hundreds of women she's helped. They're seen. They're heard. They're free. And that's what matters. That's what survival looks like. Not perfection. Not happiness. Not even justice. Just freedom. Just voice. Just visibility. Grace closes her office door. Goes home to her small apartment. The one she rents legally now. With her own money. From her own job. She makes dinner. Calls Marie. Talks to little Grace on video chat. Laughs. Lives. Because that's what you do when you survive. You live. Fully. Loudly. Visibly. Grace Toussaint is 63 years old. She is a mother. A grandmother. An immigrant. A survivor. A warrior. And she is finally truly completely free. They paid her $3 an hour and called it a blessing. They told her she had no papers, no voice, no choice. But they were wrong. She always had a voice. She just had to find it. She just had to use it. She just had to refuse to be silent. And now she teaches other women to do the same. One story at a time. One testimony at a time. One woman at a time. Building an army of the invisible. Making them visible. Making them heard. Making them matter. Because everyone matters. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves to be free. And Grace Toussaint, the woman who was nobody, the woman who cleaned blood off floors for $3 an hour, the woman who almost disappeared completely, is proof that you can survive anything if you refuse to stay silent. Her name is Grace Toussaint. She is not invisible. And neither are you.